This video will be a Shadow Priest discussion video, and I wondered how I would make the video, but I think I will be just discussing about the state of Shadow Priest. I've been making a few videos about Shadow Priest and trying to praise the good things about Shadow Priest, but then I got kind of reminded on why it is not really high on my tier list. Although I'm playing it, I do feel like there is still a lot of huge problems around Shadow Priest, and even in threes, it feels like, again, you're either a cheese spec where you're relying too much on the foresight and the catharsis, or you are not doing that much significant damage even if they're not going for you. Your CC is exceptional though, but your mobility is crap. So if people are kiting you for some reason, well, it's very hard to do anything as a Shadow Priest, especially if you have a slow on you or a root. There is a few things I'm going to propose that hopefully will make Shadow Priest good, but again, I know probably all the things that I'm going to propose are not going to be hitting Blizzard anytime soon. But if someone has a voice at Blizzard that is watching on my like one of my videos, you can maybe take one of those suggestions, at least for PvP. I think for PvE it will not be broken, but I'll be discussing right now. So, Shadow Priest, what am I not liking currently? I think Soul Shuffle kind of enlights way harder the things that I'm not liking about Shadow Priest, which is, to be honest, like being a cheese spec first and foremost, being super immobile, having defensives that are taking you out of the game, having again self heals, which is quite nice, but in a super dampening environment, kind of reminds me of enhancement shaman's problems, where self heals is not always going to be this one thing that is going to save your life. Although you can do some significant damage, it has to be enabled by a lot of factors, which in my opinion is a bit troublesome, because again, if I'm playing like an elemental shaman or with my warlock or with my devastation invoker or even as a balanced druid, I can name every single cast in the game, every single ranged spec in the game. You don't have all those troublesome things going on to actually get some damage on. Let me list a few things. For example, your foresight is a great one, but it feels cheesy to first and foremost, making your Shadowward Pain something that is instant damage and doing a lot of damage is something that is, in my eyes, not really Shadow Priesty. I think it would be nice to see that Shadow Priest finally gets some good dot damage. I'm thinking about Feral Druid kind of damage with damage over time. I know I'm not asking like crazy amount of damage, because they still have to go melee and try to apply it, and there's a lot of things that can actually be removed. But Vampiric Touch and Shadowward Pain does no damage. It is abysmal how little damage it does. I'm going to show you guys really quickly. Again, I press the button like a dumbass, but I'm going to show you really quickly on a dummy how much damage it does. And let me remind you, I have an add-on that caps any damage below 10k to not show. So it's going to be quite rough to see, but so we have a Shadowward Pain on the target. You don't see any damage. What do you know? It only does 5k. I'm going to reapply the damage, and let's see right now how much damage it does per tick. 7.6k, because now I have PvP modifiers, and Vampiric Touch only doing 13k per tick. If I would have the energy to go on my Feral Druid and do a Rake, it would do more damage, actually more damage than those two dots together. Back in the day, again, you have Devouring Plague, so if I do a Devouring Plague, for example, it will do more damage, obviously. But it's not the dot part that is going to do damage. It's going to be the, how it's called, the Devouring Plague, the instant. It did 76k, but then I see the minimum, again, it's 20k, 16k. Every time it's going to hit, it's 16k, 20k. 16k is the Vampiric Touch, and 20k is the Devouring Plague. So I have to, first and foremost, have 55 Insanity. It will be purgeable by a lot of specs. Again, if you're playing versus a Holy Paladin, they have literally a button to press, like Flash of Light, and they can like dispel any Devouring Plague you have on the target. So having even your damage enabled for Void Torrent is not possible versus them. If they know what's up with the game and they know what PvP talent they have to enable. I play Holy Paladin, I know how to play versus a Shadow Priest, and trust me, Shadow Priest is nowhere near as scary as a Holy Paladin, although you should be scared because it is a caster. But dot damage is not anywhere near where it's supposed to be. Even with Echoing Void, it's really low. So again, you are making Shadow Priest a instant damage dealer or a kind of channeling damage dealer, which Void Torrent, or if you have Mind Spike, not Mind Spike, my Mind Flay Insanity, or if you're playing with Mind Spike, that's alright. But the issue is, your Mind Spike does no damage by themselves. If you're spamming Mind Spike, first and foremost, it's very impossible to do so because they are going to kick you. But even if you have, like, let's say, a Vampiric Touch with a Shadow Word Death, it will enable your mastery. It still does some pitiful damage, man. 27k is really low on something that you have to cast, that when you are going to get kicked, you're going to get kicked on everything. Of course, you can put a Devouring Plague, and then, of course, you get like a Mind Spike Insanity proc after 2 Devouring Plagues. So if I'm doing another one, I will not have it. But if I get like another Devouring Plague, I will have a proc that I can enable then my Mind Spike Insanity. And that is the only proc that is actually mattering. It does a lot of damage. Yes, I can crit for a very big amount. The issue is you're going to get kicked regardless, but even then you can always like try to bait kicks with Void Torrent and then do a Mind Spike Insanity. You have ways to play around that, but it's very frustrating to have to Devouring Plague 2 times before you can actually deal damage. So you have some preparation to do, which again, I understand. Maybe you want Shadow Priest to have some preparation, that's good, but at least have something whenever you're going to be free cast and you're doing Mind Blast, it does some meaningful damage. I'm going to say that if I'm free casting, I'm doing Mind Blasts, it does nowhere near that dummy damage. Like 35k is actually a very big amount without a Devouring Plague. If I'm doing it right now, it does like around 119k crit, which is quite nice, but it's nowhere near that amount in PvP. But of course, your Mind Spike Insanity is going to crit for a lot. But again, it's a PvP dummy. It's not going to crit for that amount. I think it crits around 200k if you're doing it correctly, without Dark Ascension. But I think just having a free cast moment. So if they're not going on you, you're not going to feel like a god either. Like an Affliction Warlock, where whenever you are playing an Affliction Warlock and you're free, you're going to feel like a god because it does a lot of damage. Or if you're like a balanced druid and you're free, you can set up a lot of stuff, like for example spam Cyclone, or you can do a lot of damage with Starfire's Wrath still, and they can now have a lot of regen on their Star Surges, and they can spam Star Surge, for example. But people know balanced druid being free is not a good option, so they're going for them. Devastation Evoker, whenever they're free, they're dealing an insane amount of damage. If you're playing a marksmanship hunter and you're free, you can actually free cast aim shots. I mean, again, you're going to decimate the whole lobby. That's why you're going to go on the MM. Destruction Warlock being free, I mean, good luck for that, you're going to get destroyed. Demonology Warlock being free, good luck for that, you're going to have 1,000,000 pets on you. So I think personally I'm the least scared about a Shadow Priest, especially whenever they're free. If you're playing versus a Shadow Play comp, often or not you're going to go for Affliction, and the second target would be Shadow Priest if really the Affliction Warlock has a great kiting potential. I think that should be changed. I also think that Void Torrent, playing around, like the whole spec is around Void Torrent and Mind Spike and Insanity pretty much. If you want to deal damage, that's kind of the only option. Like if you're free. If you're not free, the only option you have, because like hard casting Void Channel, like a Void Torrent or Mind Spike Insanity, is not an easy feat to do. You can always fish some precogs, but still you have to sacrifice a few things for that. But the 4-set is cheesy. It does a lot of damage. With Catharsis, it does immense amount of damage. But you have to sacrifice first and foremost your sanity, but also you're highly killable, especially in social fall where healers are kind of clueless sometimes. If you see a resto druid going for a rake stun, then a cyclone, and then they expect you to survive without any hots. But in threes you have the same problems. I feel like your ramp up is a bit too slow and your damage is a bit too slow, that often or not it doesn't matter how much damage you can have to win games. You can win games with like pure CC, and if you have good coordination you can do that, and that's very fun in threes. But in Soul Shuffle it's very hard to do that with like a other melee in your team that is not like a headless chicken, and then a healer that is clueless on the amount of survivability you can have as a Shadow Priest. If they play Shadow Priest, they know, but not everyone is playing like a subpar spec in general. But Reforced is fun, but it does feel like out of touch with the real reality what Shadow Priest should be. But that's my opinion. I think there is a few things on talents that I would change personally. If not for only Shadow Priest, if it's really toxic for healers to have. But I would say that if you're not going to remove roots with Phantasm, at least make it possible to remove roots with Phase Shift. I think it's crazy that you kind of sit in roots whenever you're pressing Fade. I think it should be way better to actually be unrootable, and that you're going to remove any root that you have currently on you, at least for DPS. If it's not for the healer, I can maybe understand, because that's a playmaking ability that you can have as a resto shaman, for example, rooting your disc priest, the enemy disc priest, for example. But I think as a Shadow Priest it could be nice to have an anti-root system. I think also Mind Games is interesting, very fun. Would be cool that it is another spell, like another school of spell. Instead of Shadow, it would be like Shadow Frost, for example. Whatever they can actually add to that, I think that could be very nice as well. But that's, again, maybe I'm wrong about that, but I think that could be very interesting. Also, I think Mind Control is interesting, but it's very hard to take, because you have a lot of points you need to take to actually compensate the lack of survivability as a Shadow Priest. But other things, for example, Shadow Crash, it does pitiful damage outside of the 4-set. Now they added 4-set, so now it does a bit of damage, but it's not really a lot. It's also very slow casting, so you're casting on the enemy and it takes ages to actually crash on the enemy. Also, I think it should apply Vampiric Touch, that's cool, but I think it's not fast enough to actually crash on the enemy to have it relevant, and I think that point should be merged with Shadow Crash. I think having 2 points for that is silly and stupid, and it doesn't seem like they know what they're doing with the spec, in my opinion. Also, one point I would add is maybe Ancient Mindness should be also merged with one of those 2 talents. And one of those 2 talents, at least one of them, has to be instant cast. I don't care. I think having a ramp up that is needed to be casted is really dumb, especially since it's Shadow School. So if you're getting kicked, you're getting really destroyed pretty much. At least make it like, I don't know, a different school. So if you're getting kicked on it, you're not going to get punished for it because you're ramping up. I think that's really a stupid ability to have. But I mean, they know probably better, but in my opinion, it should not be a cast time. Even in PvE, I think it should not be a cast time. It should be able to be macroed with PI, for example. It's a quality of life change. It will make Priest way stronger, but I don't think it would break the game by having that. I think there's a few things. For example, I think the keystones are not really interesting. I think losing the how it's called, DA, like the instant triple dot. How it's called anymore? Damnation. Removing damnation is really not a great choice, but I think they probably made that for PvE, but at least make it a PvP talent. I don't care. So make it a PvP talent, so you have a choice to have an instant row of dot that you can apply on someone. That could be very nice. I think, in my opinion, that would be something I would be playing every single game, for example. Like, do it on a 45-second CD or a 30-second CD for all I care. Or something that you can, like, for example, like Affliction Warlock, you can soul swap. It could be something similar where you're kind of swapping those dots on someone. I don't care, but at least make it easier to have your dots, because again, you have mastery, which is also relying on those dots being on the enemy to make more damage. So I think that could be nice as well. There's a few points. Again, I think dispersion is stupid. and it always existed. But if it's the only defensive you have as a Shadow Priest, it's really not that great. Like, am I missing something? You don't have a damage reduction as a Shadow Priest. You could actually just self heal you with flash healing. You get 10%, but that's the only defensive you have, if I'm not mistaken. You don't have a damage reduction ability. For example, Resto Shaman has Astral Shift, or Elemental Shaman has Astral Shift, and it's not even good because you cannot use it while stunned, but they have a damage reduction ability. A Balanced Druid has Bark Skin. A Warlock has Unending Resolve. Marksmanship Hunter and BM Hunters has also Survival of the Fittest. I don't know how it's called. The green ability you can press and gives you a 40% damage reduction for 8 seconds. I think for MM it's 50% even. They have that as well. Devastation Evoker has 2 walls. Where is the wall from a Shadow Priest? Am I missing something? Is it because of a passive that you get as a priest? I think it's Focused Will. Is that our physical wall that we get? A 15% physical damage taken reduction, which, let's be honest, not a lot of specs has physical damage, or they have bleeds, like for example Feral Druids. I don't even know if it's working for that. Magic damage you take by 5%. 5%, the same 5% that you get as a Fury Warrior by just being enraged. I think it's really dumb. And melee attacks against you, it's only melee attacks, by the way. Only melee attacks. You do not have a damage reduction ability. Nothing. You have a self-heal, like a Vampiric Embrace, which is quite nice. You have Dispersion, which, mind you, is a reduction in all damage taken by 75%. That's cool. But you heal yourself, that's also cool, but you can only move. You cannot do anything when when you have dispersion. So it's me like saying that the Ice Block is the only defensive you can get as a Frost Mage or a Arcane Mage or a Fire Mage. But they have Barrier, they have Mirror Image, which is also 20%. They have blinks, so they have mobility, they have altered time, they can push people, they can chain CC their enemies. Warlock has spam fear, Priest doesn't have a spam ability they can press to save themselves. So all in all, I think I've come to the conclusion by playing it, enjoying it, and then have the bad cycle where I'm enjoying it and then I get back to reality where, look, you're playing a subpar spec and you're getting crushed because of that. And most of the time you're getting crushed because of that. You have to play like I'm not going to say like a god, but you have to play way harder to get the same result as someone else. If you're playing Elemental Shaman, you're going to have way better results. If you're playing Warlock, you're going to have better results. Devastation Evoker, better results. And I would say having Dispersion as the sole defensive as a Shadow Priest is simply not enough. It's simply not enough. I think they need a wall. And yes, in raids this could be enough, but we are not playing raids. We are playing PvP, and this is definitely not enough. I think Desperate Prayer should be having a wall. This is a pitiful defensive. It's really not that great. It should be giving you 20% reduction on damage taken. Bar, end of the line. This is really, really one of the problems that Shadow Priest has. The other problem is we do not have any mobility. And I think the video has been quite long, but I think it's very necessary to make one. We have no mobility. If I'm thinking about any class, any spec, they probably have more mobility than the Shadow Priest. Let's go all ranged specs. All Warlock specs has better mobility. They have TP and Gateway. And they can also TP with the anti-root, anti-snare, so you cannot stop them. Elemental Shaman, Gust of Wind, or you can play Spirit Walk, depending on who you're facing. For example, if you're facing a Balanced Druid, Spirit Walk is probably the best ability you can press when root beamed, because you can actually get out of root beam. Balanced Druid, you have mobility as a Balanced Druid again. It's not the best, but you can always leap towards an ally, you can leap backwards, you can leap onto the enemy. You have ways, right? You have also travel form leap. Anyways, you have also sprint. You have a lot of ways to get away from danger. We have evokers. I think I should not talk too much about mobility for them because I think their whole spec is mobility. Hunters, more mobility. Who am I missing? Mages, more mobility. Who am I actually missing that has less mobility? I think I said everything. Am I correct or not? I think like shaman, gust of wind. I already said that. I think I'm missing nothing. That's all range specs. And then let's talk about melees. Warriors, double charge and leap. I main warrior, so again, don't come at me. We have mobility, we get kited, but we don't get kited by Shadow Priest. That is never going to happen. Shadow Priest is breakfast, literally breakfast. But anyways, DH, should I say more? Rogue, should I say more? Paladin, even Paladin has more mobility than a Shadow Priest, man. Even Paladin, I play Holy Paladin, so trust me, I sometimes get like kind of frustrated because I don't have that much mobility compared to my other healers, like other healer allies. But I say Shadow Priest, but to be honest, pre-specs are like utterly immobile, like Disc Priest and Holy Priest as well. I would say Holy Priest even more because you're grounded because of even like Spirit Angel, but whatever. What else? We have Monks, which is again laughable. I should not even explain. Even Shaman, like Enhancement Shaman, has mobility. He can like the Wolf ability to get to the enemy, and also Gust of Wind if they play, or Spirit Walk if they play that. You have again even Frost Mages and like Frost Decays and Unholy Decays, where you would think they have no mobility. Well, guess what? They have disadvantage, so you cannot really slow them, and also they can get away from a lot of stuff, and they cannot get pushed. They can also bring you to themselves, so I think that's the best mobility you can have, actually bringing people to you. The only thing that you can do as a priest is bringing your allies to you, to your death, pretty much. So if you want to have mobility, you gotta have an evoker so he can rescue you out of harm's way. That's the only way you can have mobility as a Shadow Priest. Or have a warlock friend to get a gateway. That's also a great mobility spell, which is not for priests. So it is the philosophy that someone has to have the least mobility in the game. I think I don't want to have everyone being homogenized and have every single spec, every single class feel the same. But I think having no mobility is unacceptable. Having no real wall is unacceptable. I think it's time to bring Door of Shadows back for Priest. I think just in general, it's a costed ability first and foremost, but also it's a skillful ability. It gives you also a mini disorient, I think, if I'm not mistaken, from Shadowlands. And again, Shadow School. So it could be like playful, it could be like mind games kind of things. And I think it could be very good for the class fantasy in general. So I think that is my suggestion. Instead of having like an immobile spec, at least make it a immobile spec with like just one mobility spell, which is Door of Shadows, which in my opinion is the most fun spell you could have as event there in Shadowlands. Like all classes combined, Door of Shadows was really fun and also very skillful in my opinion, and that would be also solving a lot of problems in my eyes. Now I'm going to end the video on a positive note. What is actually Shadow Priest doing well? CC wise, we're doing well. I think having a stun, silence, fear. You can also have mind control. You have also a root with void tendrils. I think that all is very cool. I think having a lot of defensive utilities for your friends with a void shift. It's a void shift with vampiric embrace. Having mass dispel is big, although it's very nerfed, but still big. You have leap of faith with, again, if you have a warlock that is actually kited and he knows how to kite, he can actually like use that leap of faith very well. You also have PI, which you can have it for you and your ally. Again, mind games, although it's sometimes a meme because it's so easy to dispel, it can like finish off games pretty well. You have some like off heals. It's not fantastic, but it's still there. So you have some redeeming factors, but this is not enough to feel like you're a complete spec. And I don't think it's gutter bad like augmentation invoker right now, but it's really just a hair trim away from there. If like fire mage and augmentation invoker didn't exist, I think Shadow Priest would be the worst ranged spec right now, at least in solo shuffle. I think in threes you have some redeeming factors, but again, you kind of utility bot. You can deal some damage, and yes, you can deal some damage if trained, but you have to spam Shadow Word Pain, which is not really the spell you would think it would be like doing an instant damage. I think you should bring back some big mind blasts. I think Devouring Plague is cool how it is right now, but it's too easily dispelled by a lot of specs. Dispel protection on Vampiring Touch is abysmal. I think your Void Torrent is fun, but if you're relying on that, you're not going to get a kill. Mind Spike Insanity should be activated every single time you're going to get a Devouring Plague, so you actually at least you have some smooth rotation where you want to have a Devouring Plague into a Mind Spike Insanity. Right now you have to do it 2 times and then you get a Mind Spike Insanity, which often you get stunned, micro CC'd, interrupted until you don't have that stack anymore, which is kind of terrible to have that. I think you kind of nerfed a few builds which are kind of laughable right now. So fix Shadow Priest. I'm still a believer. I think Shadow Priest is fun to a certain extent. But I'm going to say that it's also highly frustrating. How much fun you can have as Shadow Priest is equally frustrating, if not more. Especially in Soul Shuffle. If you're playing a bit of Soul Shuffle as a Shadow Priest, you kind of get disgust. And then in threes, you get to play versus like stupid comps. And if you don't have an optimal comp, you're not going to do anything as a Shadow Priest. You have to play with great players on a great comp so you can actually deal some great damage and some great opportunities. But that's the only thing that you have as a Shadow Priest though. It's your CC and your utility, because I think your damage is really highly replaceable in most matchups. So again, this is more of a rant video. Hopefully you learned something from it. Hopefully you're not like disappointed that I made that video after I made like some praises on Shadow Priest. But I think I had to play more Shadow Priest to actually understand the pain points from Shadow Priest. And I think a lot of people should do that for a lot of specs. I think, again, I'm a highly believer on the fact that you need to play all the specs to understand all the specs. Personally, I play all the specs to a certain extent, to a certain level. I'm not going to say that I'm glad level on every single spec, but I'm going to say that you cannot really speak on, let's say, a DH if you're not playing DH. You cannot really speak on Fury Warrior and saying that they are OP, for example. Yeah, some people are saying that Fury Warrior is OP or S tier. Like, I invite you to play Fury Warrior and come back to me being like really down to earth, and you're going to understand that Fury Warrior is nowhere near fine, for example. You're going to play Arms Warrior, get into a castle lobby, tell me if you had fun from it, try to do it 5 times in a row, come back to me, and then ask me if Arms Warrior is, for example, brain dead. Try to play, for example, Hunter, and try to get trained for a bit and see if it's still OP, for example. A lot of people should like try to play specs and have a few perspectives. They might say that, look, DH is easier, and it is easier to climb as a DH, but I think people forget about a few pain points that some specs have, and I think Shadow Priest is one of them. I think a lot of people like look at certain things and they forget about those certain things. But overall, I think yeah, it would be helping the whole community by having more understanding on all the specs and subjects, because I feel like people are like talking about like things that they don't know or things that they are not understanding, and it would help like immensely also the balance team to have people actually more knowledgeable about those things. But luckily, our channel does that. But again, I try to do my best with videos. I've made a soul shuffle tier list video yesterday, so if you want to check that out, you can always check that out. And I'll try to make a video about Shadow Priest in the future again, but I got get discouraged a bit. I think I'm having more fun on other specs right now. I'm not someone that plays a spec just for the sake of it. I try to maximize my fun with also the content I can produce on the YouTube channel. So yeah, right now I'm having fun as Elemental Shaman. I have like a fantastic build that I'm going to talk about it maybe tomorrow or the day after. So stay tuned. And yeah, thank you for watching. Have a great day. Be sure to stay safe. We will catch you probably very soon in the next video. Have a great day. Bye.